What if I told you there's a monster out there so big it could knock over skyscrapers like dominoes? Well, today we're diving into the biggest and baddest kaiju from Pacific Rim. From the creepy Baby Kaiju that makes a mess the moment it's born to Slattern, to the king of all monsters, these beasts are next level terrifying. So stick around because we're counting down the 10 biggest kaiju that had humanity shaking in its boots, from the smallest to the biggest of all of them. At number 10, we've got the Baby Kaiju, which might sound cute at first, but it's far from a harmless little bundle of joy. This newborn is actually the offspring of a massive Otachi and makes quite the dramatic entrance in Pacific Rim when it bursts out after Otachi's defeat. Even though it's called a baby, it's roughly the size of 2 large elephants, so you can imagine just how big and heavy it is. Easily tens of thousands of pounds. The Baby Kaiju is already 20 feet tall. Its body is covered in slippery afterbirth, and with its thin, not quite developed skin, you can tell it's really not ready to survive on its own. In fact, its lungs are so underdeveloped it can barely breathe without proper assistance. But just because it's a baby doesn't mean it won't cause havoc. It actually manages to swallow one of the characters, Hannibal Chow, whole. Of course, Hannibal later cuts his way out, which is both terrifying and darkly hilarious. The Baby Kaiju's short life ends almost immediately because it chokes itself on its own umbilical cord during its first rampage. While it never gets a real chance to show off big, destructive powers, the Baby Kaiju is still noteworthy because it reveals just how the kaiju are continuing to evolve. Moving on to number 9, we have Bellowbog, also nicknamed Bog by the pilots in training. Now, this one is a bit different from the rest because it doesn't actually exist in the real world of Pacific Rim. Instead, it's a digitally simulated kaiju used for training purposes at the Jaeger Academy. It's designed to be every bit as challenging as an actual monster, with a tough shell reminiscent of a big crustacean and huge pincers capable of ripping right into a Jaeger if the pilot isn't careful. It even has a long, piercing tongue that can strike the cockpit and end a simulation in a single blow. During one notable training exercise, the Beckett brothers, Rayleigh and Yancey, go up against Bellowbog in a virtual environment. They actually start to get the upper hand by grabbing it, smashing it around, and even tearing off a mandible, but a moment of distraction is all this simulated beast needs. In an instant, Bog's tongue shoots through the Jaeger's cockpit, ending the session. It might be lower on our list because it's just a simulator, but it's still a fearsome foe for anyone practicing to pilot a giant robot. The Bellowbog is standing around 170 feet tall. At number 8, we have Onibaba, a Category 2 kaiju that may not reach the same massive heights as some Category 4 or 5 monsters, but it's still absolutely terrifying in its own right. Standing at around 188 feet tall and weighing somewhere around 4,080,000 pounds, this crustacean-like giant is heavily armored with a wide, bulky shell and spiky barbs. The shell alone can withstand a ton of punishment, and Onibaba's 2 massive claws can crush over 50,000 pounds of force per square inch, which is just mind-boggling. The spikes on its shell also contain toxins, so trying to grab or grapple with it is incredibly dangerous. Despite all this, Onibaba usually doesn't go looking for a fight unless it feels threatened. It's a bit more defensive than some of the more aggressive kaiju we see later, however, when it does attack, it's no joke. One of the most memorable moments involving Onibaba is its assault on Tokyo, referred to as the Onibaba incident. The city is devastated and a young Makomori is nearly killed in the chaos. Just when it seems like Mako's a goner, the Jaeger known as Coyote Tango swoops in, piloted by Stack Pierce. Even with top-tier piloting, Onibaba still manages to land some serious hits before eventually going down. Next up at number 7 is Otachi, one of the deadliest and most versatile kaiju in the series. A Category 4 measuring about 207 feet tall and weighing around 5,380,000 pounds, Otachi's biggest claim to fame is that she can spit both corrosive acid and fly. Yes, you heard that right. She's got a set of wing-like limbs that can unfold, letting her soar through the sky and carry unsuspecting Jaegers to dizzying heights. The acid is particularly nasty, capable of melting through Jaeger armor and even large structures. Otachi's tail is also a deadly weapon, ending in pincers that can snap and grip. She teams up with Leatherback during the Hong Kong incident, taking on multiple Jaegers in quick succession. Crimson Typhoon and Cherno Alpha fall victim to her cunning tactics. Even Gypsy Danger has to pull out all the stops to take Otachi down, slicing her clean in half with a chainsword in one of the film's most memorable battles. And if Otachi's destructive capabilities weren't enough, she also carries the big surprise of being pregnant, giving birth to the Baby Kaiju that tries to continue her rampage. Landing at number 6, we have the gorilla-like menace known as Leatherback. Classified as a Category 4, Leatherback stands around 267 feet tall and weighs roughly 5,800,000 pounds. It walks on its knuckles like a massive ape and has muscular arms powerful enough to rip open a Jaeger's armor if it gets the chance. Its tough hide is layered like armored plating, which helps it withstand artillery fire. But Leatherback's real claim to fame is its ability to create an electromagnetic pulse, EMP. The large organ on its back generates a massive energy surge, knocking out every electronic system in the vicinity, including Jaegers that rely on digitized control systems. During the battle in Hong Kong, Leatherback knocks out Striker Eureka with a single EMP blast, leaving the advanced Jaeger completely powerless and vulnerable. If not for Gypsy Danger showing up, an older Jaeger model that still uses analog nuclear power, things could have gotten really grim. Even then, Leatherback puts up a brutal fight, smashing anything it can grab, including construction cranes. Ultimately, Gypsy Danger's plasma cannon and the pilot's quick thinking bring Leatherback down for good. At number 5, we've got Trespasser, the kaiju that started it all by ushering humanity into a brand new era of monster attacks. Trespasser was the first kaiju to emerge from the breach, making landfall near San Francisco on August 10th, 2013. At around 287 feet tall and weighing in the neighborhood of 5,560,000 pounds, this beast wasted no time in letting us know how serious these threats would become. In a brutal rampage that lasted days, Trespasser tore through the Golden Gate Bridge like it was made of cardboard, then went on to level huge portions of the Bay Area, including parts of San Francisco, Sacramento, and Oakland. Conventional weapons barely left a scratch on its thick hide. In the end, the military resorted to dropping not 1, not 2, but 3 nuclear warheads to bring this beast down. The devastation was immense, but seeing Trespasser's massive skull on display afterward drove home just how gigantic these kaiju were going to be. Sitting at number 4 is Mutavore, a Category 4 beast that really demonstrated why the Jaeger program was essential. Measuring about 295 feet tall and tipping the scales at an impressive 5,260,000 pounds, Mutavore sports a distinctive crescent-shaped crest on its head that's basically a giant bladed weapon. It also has 3 eyes on each side, giving it fantastic peripheral vision. Nobody's sneaking up on this thing easily. With a pair of huge clawed arms and some smaller insect-like limbs on its chest, it can tear through buildings and city walls like they're nothing. In fact, that's exactly what happens when it attacks Sydney, Australia, and smashes through the so-called anti-kaiju wall, which was supposed to protect the city. Then comes Striker Eureka, the advanced Aussie Jaeger piloted by Hercules and Chuck Hansen. In an intense showdown, Striker Eureka manages to hold its own against Mutavore's crushing blows, landing a series of devastating hits before finally finishing it off with a flurry of missiles. The short but destructive rampage in Sydney was enough to convince the public that big, moving mechs stand a far better chance against kaiju than any wall ever could. Moving right along to number 3, we've got Raiju, another imposing Category 4 that takes the definition of fast and furious to a whole new level. Towering roughly at 358 feet tall and weighing a colossal 6,950,000 pounds, Raiju is built like a massive crocodile with a heavily armored back and an elongated head that can actually split open to reveal a glowing inner jaw. That hinged skull is a downright creepy feature, perfect for scaring the daylights out of Jaeger pilots. In battle, Raiju uses its streamlined body and powerful limbs to swim incredibly fast, making it one of the biggest threats in underwater engagements. During the final mission, it teams up with Scunner and Slattern to guard the breach from Gypsy Danger and Striker Eureka. Raiju's quick, snapping charge allows it to dodge some attacks while landing devastating strikes, including helping to rip off one of Gypsy Danger's arms. However, Gypsy Danger manages to outsmart Raiju by waiting for it to rush head-on, then deploying a chainsword at the last second. Raiju impales itself on the blade and is sliced in half by its own momentum. Even so, Raiju remains one of the most formidable kaiju out there thanks to its unique anatomy and lightning-fast assaults. At number 2, we have Scunner, another Category 4 monster that has some serious bull-like attributes. Towering at 441 feet high and weighing about 6,460,000 pounds, Scunner packs 2 large horns on its head that it uses to ram into Jaegers with brute force. It's also heavily armored, similar to Leatherback and Raiju, but carries more of a stocky, muscular build. Perhaps the most intimidating thing about Scunner is that it's a team player. When it emerges from the breach alongside Raiju, it coordinates with its fellow kaiju to overwhelm the Jaegers. In the underwater battle near the breach, Scunner helps peel off pieces of Gypsy Danger, showing just how unstoppable it can be in its element. Gypsy Danger fights back fiercely, using its chainsword to stab Scunner's neck and even burning its face against an underwater volcanic vent in a desperate struggle, but Scunner is resilient, regrouping to take on Striker Eureka when Slattern calls for backup. In a heroic last stand, Striker Eureka's pilot detonates their nuclear payload, taking Scunner out in a massive underwater explosion that also cripples Slattern. The fact that it took a nuclear blast in close quarters to stop Scunner really says it all. This kaiju is unbelievably tough, and if it weren't for that sacrificial move, there's no telling how much damage it could have done. Finally, at number 1, we have the ultimate kaiju that stands above all the others, Slattern. As the only confirmed Category 5 kaiju in Pacific Rim, Slattern is a towering 596 feet tall and tips the scales at roughly 13,500,000 pounds, which is beyond gigantic. Its body is covered in thick, leathery armor, and it has a hammerhead-like face equipped with multiple glowing blue eyes. But it's the 3 enormous spiked tails that really set this kaiju apart. These tails aren't just for show, they can whip around with incredible speed and power, piercing even the toughest Jaeger armor. Slattern is also highly intelligent, capable of strategic thinking that allows it to call for reinforcements like Raiju and Scunner when it senses the odds turning against it. In the final confrontation, Slattern relentlessly protects the breach, absorbing hit after hit from Striker Eureka and Gypsy Danger. Even when Striker Eureka delivers a major blow with its nuclear payload, Slattern barely misses a beat, proving just how ridiculously tough Category 5 kaiju can be. It's only in the last moments when Gypsy Danger goes nuclear at point-blank range that Slattern is finally destroyed. It's the biggest, baddest monster in the original Pacific Rim story, and its near-invincible presence cements its status as the top kaiju on this list. So, which kaiju was your favorite? Did Slattern deserve the top spot, or do you think another beast should take the crown? Let us know in the comments below. And hey, if you're a fan of epic monsters, you can watch this other cool video that appears on your screen. Click on it to see it! Click on it!